And we have some sacred chai here. I mean, really makes me happy this morning to spend that over a cup of chai.
My
as
pleasure,
the name
yes.
says.
Yeah.
It is chai, so it's a tea. But I think I would like to let you explain and talk about the sacred chai journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what you said. I think after 10 years of traveling and my first business being in fitness, I still do think that the most important thing in our life is our health. And so I've definitely. I can say I've learned health, and I think I have. I don't want to say mastered it, but I know it well, and that's part of my lifestyle. So it's the next part of what's most important, I think, in life are relationships. And obviously it's relationship with yourself, relationship with others. And for me, I'm, well, right now I'm seeing someone, but I still have not been married. I was just listening to a podcast about this, divorce lawyer, and talking about all these, statistics and so on, and I think that's kind of what I've created here is just how to keep the spark in relationships going, and I, obviously have gone through heartbreak. I've failed in relationships, and I understand that. Where when we take somebody for granted, that's the biggest problem, and so how do you keep that spark alive for years to come? And I think that the most important thing is just devoting time to that person, and so that's where obviously having a physiological change with having amazing aphrodisiacs in a chai can help induce that. But I wanted to go much further because it's not just about a physiological change. Take this pill and then it's going to make you want this person. We are body, mind, spirit, and so that's where by connecting the questions that we have and what we've created is this 90-day protocol. So having the just 15 minutes a day, sitting down with your partner, discussing, one question over a cup of chai, it's going to put life into your relationship. And a lot of these questions, I know that even some of my friends that have been married for 10 years, 15 years that I've, now sent this to, they're like, wow, I've never even asked my wife this question. And so that's where when you lead with vulnerability, it really exposes your heart. And that's where, when that happens, that true connection can be much more solid. And so that's really what I've created.
I see. So it's a combination of that's the box of the chai, right? The aphrodisiac chai, as you said. And then there's this is combined with cards with questions, and there's 3 stacks in that sense. One that says connect, one that says bond, and one that says unite.
Yes.
And here, for example, that's the connect one. Questions like, how would you describe me to a stranger? What is the one thing you've never told me because you were afraid of my reaction? Yeah, very deep. Who came up with these questions?
So it's a combination. I definitely did my research with all the different card games, therapists, and then, to be honest, it was actually one of my friends who went through a shamanic journey with his wife. That they sent me their questions, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" And so, we got the blessing to use some of those, and that's very much in the month 2, the bond.
The bond.
So connect is, as you just read, but as you see in bond, it's much more the definitions, because it's an interesting thing that when a person says a word, you don't really understand how they understand that word and how they define it. And so that's where the first 15 days is really like, you can see what is that word in front.
Tell me what death is. Tell me what death is not.
Right. And tell me what
connection is.
And tell me what connection is not. So
God.
Yeah. So really understanding your partner's definitions of these crucial words, I think, is a very important practice. And then the third month, and that's why it's in sequential order, is discussions discussions about sex, different rituals for sex. And so again, in line with obviously what the aphrodisiac is for, and this is to really connect in a deeper way, because I find that realistically most people, they're, especially as I was just listening to this podcast, as timely as it was, they don't talk about their preferences in the bedroom.
Yeah.
It's almost, they're scared of the judgment. But the reality is that that's a big part of a relationship. And if it's not addressed, then it's not going to be fixed.
Yeah.
And so this might just give people a little bit of that extra help to have a discussion that they really wanted to, and also different ideas of how to create a better container, as opposed to just, hey, roll over, or the kids are asleep, so.